Hello everyone, welcome to week 8 of Operation Home Church, where we bring the education of church school to your little church at home. Well, last week we met a man named Abram. God came to Abram and told him to leave his country and come to a new land with all of his family. Abram followed God to a new land called Canaan with everyone in his house, his wife, his servants, and even his nephew, Lot. Do you remember what God promised to Abram? Well, God told him to get up and follow him, and that he would have many children and would inherit the land of Canaan. But so far, Abram had no children, not even one. Abram had to have a lot of faith in God as he traveled and learned to trust God. Abram had many adventures on his travels as he followed God's lead. Today's lesson is about one of these adventures. Here's how the story goes. Now when Abram heard his brother Lot was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he divided his forces against them by night. He and his servants attacked and pursued them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. So he brought back all the cavalry of Sodom, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. Then the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is, the king's valley, after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer and the kings with him. Now Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High. He blessed Abram and said, "Blessed be Abram of God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hands." Then Abram gave him a tithe of all. What an adventure for Abram and Lot. Lot was captured by enemies, and Abram had to organize a raid at night to set him free. An interesting part of this story is that the enemy that captured Lot was actually the armies of 5 kings of the land of Canaan. That's a pretty big army. Abram gathered all his trained soldiers and defeated this army. Now, do you remember how many soldiers Abram had? Abram only had 318 soldiers, but he had God on his side. And if you have God on your side, you can defeat any army, no matter how big it is. Here's a few more questions about today's story. This story is just one time when Abram was faced with troubles in his life. Do you think that he ever doubted that God was with him? I know if I struggled as much as Abram, I would struggle with doubt too. What happened after Abram freed his nephew Lot? He was met by a man named Melchizedek. Who was Melchizedek? Melchizedek was the priest of God. He's also one of the most mysterious people in the Old Testament. In fact, St. Paul the Apostle tells us that he is similar to Jesus Christ, who wasn't born until thousands of years later. What did Melchizedek bring? Melchizedek brought bread and wine. In this week's lesson, we continued our journey with Abram, who followed God in the land of Canaan. We're still waiting for God to fulfill his promise with Abram to give him many children who will inherit Canaan. Abram had to wait very patiently and follow God with faith. Now in the last lesson, Father Evan mentioned that God was leading Abram not to a certain place, but rather to himself. And in this week's story, Abram went through a big adventure. And where did he end up? He ended up meeting someone that offered him bread and wine. Now, who else offers us bread and wine? Christ offers us bread and wine, his body and blood. Just like Abram, God is calling all of us to make a journey of faith to find him and meet him. We don't meet Melchizedek, we meet Christ, and he offers us bread and wine, Holy Communion. Thank you for joining us this week. We hope you will check out the resources in the link below. We'll see you next time.